This is the story of my marriage, the one I thought would bring me happiness, but instead, it left me feeling more alone than ever. My name is Hannah Green. I live in Seattle. I thought marriage was the start of my happy life, but it was not. I remember my wedding day, the white dress, the flowers, the smiles. I remember people clapping. I remember my mother's tears. She thought I was happy. I thought I was happy too. But inside, something was missing. On our first night, he sat beside me. He held my hand, but his eyes, they were somewhere else. I tried to smile. I told myself, maybe it is just the first day. Days passed. We moved into our new home, a small apartment with 2 rooms. I decorated the living room. I placed flowers on the table. I cooked dinner every night. He came home late every night. Sometimes he smiled. Sometimes he didn't. Sometimes he didn't talk at all. I waited for his words. I waited for his touch, but silence was louder than love. At night I lay beside him. I could hear his breathing, but it felt like we were miles apart. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to say, I feel alone. But my voice stayed inside. I started to cry in the shower, so he wouldn't see, so he wouldn't ask. One evening I made his favourite food. I wore my best dress. I waited. The clock ticked. The food became cold. The candles burned out. He came home after midnight. He didn't even look at me, just walked into the bedroom. I stood in the kitchen, holding a cold plate. My heart felt heavy. I asked myself, is this what marriage is? The next morning he kissed my forehead. He said, I'm busy at work, and left. I stood at the door, feeling like a stranger in my own life. That was the first time I knew marriage does not always mean love. I closed the door. I stood in the quiet room. The sound of the city outside felt far away. It was just me and my thoughts. I made coffee. I sat on the couch. I looked at the empty chair in front of me. That chair was his, but he was never in it. I remembered when we first met. He was so kind. He made me laugh. He asked me questions. He looked into my eyes. Now, he looked at his phone, or his laptop, or the TV, but not at me. I wondered, what happened to us? The next week, I tried to talk to him. We were eating dinner. I asked, are you happy? He looked up for a second. "Why?" he said. I said, "You seem far away." He smiled, but it was a small, cold smile. "I'm just tired," he said. Tired. Always tired. I nodded. I ate my food. But inside, I felt my heart closing. Days turned into weeks. Weeks turned into months. I learned to sleep alone, even when he was beside me. In the mornings, I would wake up before him. I would sit by the window. I would watch the rain. Seattle has a lot of rain, but that year, it felt like the rain was inside me too. Sometimes I saw couples in the street, holding hands, laughing, smiling, and I thought, that was us once. I started to write in a notebook. I wrote my feelings. I wrote my dreams. I wrote about my loneliness. The pages became my secret place, a place where I could be honest, a place where I could say, I am not happy. One night I couldn't sleep. I turned to him. He was awake, staring at his phone. I whispered, "Do you still love me?" He didn't answer at first. Then he said, "Of course I do." But his voice, it didn't sound like love. I looked at him in the dark. His face was tired. His eyes were empty. I turned away. I cried quietly. The next morning, I decided to change something. I thought, if I make him happy, maybe he will make me happy too. So I cleaned the whole apartment. I cooked his favorite breakfast. I wore the sweater he once said he liked. When he came to the kitchen, I smiled and said, "Good morning." He sat down. He ate quickly. He said flatly, "I have a meeting," and left. The plate was still warm, but my heart felt colder than ever. That day I went for a walk. The air was fresh. The leaves were falling. I saw an old couple holding hands. The woman was laughing. The man was looking at her like she was the only person in the world. I felt tears in my eyes. Not because of them, but because I wanted that. When I got home, he was not there. Again. I sat on the bed. I looked at my wedding ring. It was shiny, beautiful, but it felt heavy on my hand. I thought about taking it off, but I didn't. Not yet. That night he came home late. He smelled like perfume. I asked, "Where were you?" He said, "Work." I wanted to believe him. I told myself, don't make a problem. But my heart whispered, something is wrong. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling. My chest hurt, not from sickness, but from emptiness. In the morning, I saw his phone on the table. For a moment, I thought about looking inside, but I didn't. I was afraid of what I might see. I made tea. I sat by the window again. The rain was falling hard, and I thought, maybe love can die quietly. I wanted to scream. I wanted to ask him, what happened to us? Why are we like this? But when he came home that night, I just said, dinner is ready. We ate in silence. We washed the dishes. We went to bed. I closed my eyes. I listened to his breathing, and I felt completely alone. That was the night I realized something. You can be married and still feel single, and that is a very lonely place to be. The next morning, I woke up before the sun. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea. The steam rose slowly. It felt warmer than my marriage. I looked at my phone. No messages from him. No good morning. No, I miss you. I remembered when he used to text me all the time. Even small things like, did you eat? Or, I saw something that made me think of you. Those days were gone. When he finally woke up, he just said, I'm going to be late today. No kiss, no smile. I nodded. I wanted to ask, do you even see me anymore? But my lips stayed closed. After he left, I sat in the quiet. I looked around the apartment. Everything was in its place, but nothing felt like home. Home is not walls. Home is a feeling, and that feeling was gone. I decided to call my best friend Lily. She lived in another city. We hadn't talked in a while. When she answered, her voice was full of life. Hannah, how are you? I opened my mouth, but the truth was too heavy. I'm fine, I said, but my voice cracked. She asked, are you sure? I hesitated. Then the tears came. I'm not happy, Lily, I whispered. I'm married, but I feel alone. There was silence on the line. Then she said, you don't sound like the Hannah I knew. Her words hurt, because they were true. I used to be full of dreams. I used to laugh easily. Now I was just tired. Lily asked, gentle, have you told him how you feel? I shook my head, even though she couldn't see me. No, I don't want to fight. She sighed. Hannah, a marriage without talking will die. Her words stayed in my mind all day. That night, I decided to try. He came home around 9. He looked tired. I made tea for both of us. We sat at the table. I said softly, "Can we talk?" He looked at me. His eyes were blank, flat. "About what?" I took a deep breath. "I feel lonely. I feel like you don't see me anymore." He leaned back in his chair. Quickly, "That's not true," he said quickly. "But it feels true," I whispered. He sighed. "Hannah, I'm busy. Work is hard. I can't always be romantic." "I'm not asking for romance every day," I said. "I'm asking for you, your time, your heart." He looked away. The silence was heavy. After a moment, he said, "I don't know what you want from me." Those words cut deep, because I didn't think I was asking for too much. Just love, just care, just him. We finished our tea without speaking. He went to bed. I stayed in the kitchen. I felt cold inside. In the following days, nothing changed. If anything, it got worse. He came home later. He talked even less. One night, I made dinner. I waited until 10 p.m. Then I ate alone. I wrapped his plate in foil. When he came in, he didn't even look at it. I asked, "Did you eat?" He said, "Yes, with a friend." The word friend felt like a knife. I wanted to ask who, but I was afraid of the answer. That night I cried into my pillow. I didn't want him to hear, but maybe I wanted him to hear. Maybe I wanted him to care. The next morning he acted normal, like nothing was wrong. I realized maybe he didn't see my pain, or maybe he didn't want to. That week, I started walking to the park every evening. I watched children play. I watched couples laugh. I watched strangers smile at each other, and I thought, why can't we be like that? One day, an old woman sat next to me on the bench. She smiled and said, "Waiting for someone?" I shook my head. "No, just sitting." She looked at me for a long time. Then she said, "You look lonely." Her words made my throat tighten. I wanted to tell her everything, but I just nodded. She patted my hand. "Loneliness in a marriage," she said softly, "is the worst kind." When I got home that evening, the apartment was dark. He wasn't there. I didn't wait this time. I ate dinner alone. I read a book. I went to bed. At midnight, I heard the door open. I pretended to be asleep. I felt him lie down beside me. The mattress moved, but my heart didn't. I lay there in the dark, knowing something important had broken, and I wasn't sure if it could be fixed. The next morning, I woke up to an empty bed. The blanket beside me was cold. He had already left. No note, no message. I made coffee for myself. I sat at the kitchen table. The chair across from me was empty again. I stared at it for a long time. It felt like a mirror of my heart. Empty. I thought about the woman in the park. Her words echoed in my head. Loneliness in a marriage is the worst kind. She was right. I picked up my phone. I opened a blank message. I typed, "We need to talk tonight." Then I stared at the words. Should I send it? I deleted it. I didn't want another cold answer. Instead, I put my phone down. I started cleaning the apartment. I cleaned the shelves. I washed the dishes. I folded the laundry. But no matter how much I cleaned, I couldn't clean the emptiness inside me. In the afternoon, I went for another walk. The sky was grey. The wind was cold. I saw couples drinking coffee together, laughing, talking. I wondered when we had stopped talking. Was it months ago? Or years? Or maybe it was the day we got married. When I returned home, I found his jacket on the couch. That meant he was home. I walked into the bedroom. He was lying on the bed, looking at his phone. I stood at the door. "Hi," I said softly. He looked up for a second. "Hi." Then he went back to his phone. I wanted to scream. I wanted to shake him. I wanted to ask, "Don't you see me? Don't you care?" But my voice stayed trapped inside. That night, we ate in silence. Only the sound of forks on plates. After dinner, he sat in front of the TV. I sat on the couch on the other side of the room. It felt like we were two strangers sharing the same air. When he finally looked at me, he said, "Why are you so quiet?" Quiet. I had been quiet for months, maybe years. I just said, "I'm tired." He nodded and looked back at the screen. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I turned to look at him. His face was peaceful in sleep, but mine was not. "Do you even love me anymore?" But the darkness didn't answer. The next day, I met Lily for lunch. She had come to Seattle for work. When she saw me, her smile faded. "You look different," she said. I knew she meant sad. We sat at a small cafe. I told her everything, how he was distant, how I felt invisible, how I cried alone at night. She held my hand. "Hannah," she said, "you can't live like this forever." I felt my throat tighten. "I don't want to leave him," I whispered. "But I don't want this life either." She squeezed my hand. "Then something has to change." Her words followed me home. That evening, I decided to try one more time. When he came in, I asked, "Can we go for a walk?" He looked surprised. "Now?" "Yes," I said, "just a short walk." He sighed, but agreed. We walked down the street. The air was cool. The city lights glowed. I said, "I miss us." He looked at me. "What do you mean?" "I miss talking. I miss laughing. I miss feeling like you're my best friend." He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I didn't know you felt this way." I stopped walking. "You didn't know," I said, tears filling my eyes. "I've been feeling like this for months." He looked down. "I guess I was too busy to notice. Too busy to notice my pain. Too busy to notice me." We walked back in silence. When we got home, he went straight to bed. I sat in the living room. The clock ticked. The rain tapped against the window. And I realized talking to him felt like talking to a wall. That night, I lay awake for hours. My mind was full of questions. Do I stay? Do I leave? Do I wait for him to change? But the biggest question was, what about my heart? The next morning, I woke up feeling heavy. My body was tired, but my heart was even more tired. I made breakfast and set the table for 2. He came out of the bedroom, but didn't sit down. He just grabbed his bag.
"I'll eat at the office,"
he said. I nodded slowly and didn't ask why. When the door closed behind him, the silence filled the room again. I sat at the table alone. The eggs were still warm, but I had no appetite. I picked up my notebook, the one I wrote in when I couldn't talk to him. I wrote, "I feel invisible. I feel like a shadow in my own home." My hand shook, tears blurred the page. I stopped writing and looked at my wedding ring again. It was beautiful, but beauty doesn't keep you warm at night. Later that day, Lily called. She asked, "How are you today?" I said, "The same." She was quiet for a moment, then she said, "You deserve love, Hannah, not just someone who shares your address." Her words hit me hard. That evening, I didn't cook. I didn't wait. When he came home, he asked, annoyed, "Did you make dinner?" I shook my head flatly. "No, I wasn't hungry." He frowned, then went to the kitchen and made a sandwich. We didn't speak. I sat on the couch, staring at the wall, feeling like I wasn't even part of his world anymore. That night in bed, I turned away from him. I felt his back against mine. We were so close, and yet so far. Days passed like this, cold mornings, silent nights. One Friday evening, he said he had to work late. I nodded, but something in me didn't believe him. At midnight, he still wasn't home. I sat in the dark living room, the clock ticking loudly. Finally, I heard the door open. He walked in, smelling like a perfume I didn't own. My chest tightened. I wanted to ask, "Where were you?" But the words stuck. He looked at me, annoyed. "Why are you awake?" "I couldn't sleep," I said. He didn't answer, just went to the bedroom. I stayed in the living room, my hands cold and my heart even colder. The next day, I told Lily everything. She said, thoughtful, "Hannah, you have to decide, are you going to keep living like this?" Her question stayed with me all day. That night, I watched him sleep. I thought about the man I married, the man who once made me feel safe. Now, I didn't even know if I could trust him. I realized something. I couldn't keep waiting for him to change. If I wanted love, I had to start by loving myself. The next morning, I dressed nicely. I went to a cafe by myself. I ordered coffee and sat by the window. I watched the rain fall and wrote in my notebook, "I am more than this pain. I am more than this marriage." It felt strange, but also powerful. When I got home, he was sitting on the couch. He looked at me. "Where were you?" I said, "Out." He frowned. "With who?" "Just me," I said. "Myself." He didn't understand, but that was okay. That night, I didn't cry. For the first time in months, I felt a small spark inside me. It wasn't happiness, not yet, but it was hope. And hope can grow. The next morning, I woke up before him. I sat in the kitchen. The early light came through the window. The city was quiet. I held my coffee cup with both hands. It was warm, warmer than our marriage. I thought about the last year, the dinners alone, the cold mornings, the silent nights. I thought about the girl I used to be, the girl who laughed easily, the girl who believed in love. Where had she gone? I heard him walking to the kitchen. He sat down. He looked at me. "You're up early," he said. I nodded. "I have something to say." He looked surprised. "Okay, what is it?" "I'm not happy." He froze. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I feel alone," I said. "I feel like we're strangers living in the same house." He frowned. "That's not true." I shook my head. It is for me, and I can't pretend any more. He looked down at his hands. Why didn't you tell me before? I tried, I said softly, but you didn't hear me, or you didn't want to. The silence between us felt heavier than words. Finally, he said, So what do you want to do? The question made my chest hurt, because I had been asking myself the same thing for months. I stared at my coffee. I don't know, but I know I can't keep living like this. We didn't talk much after that. He left for work. I stayed home. I walked through the apartment, touched the couch where we used to sit together, opened the closet where our clothes hung side by side, looked at the wedding photos on the wall. In the pictures we were smiling, but now I wondered, were those smiles real? I sat down and opened my notebook. I wrote, I have two choices. Stay and keep breaking, or leave and try to heal. The words scared me, but they also felt true. That evening when he came home, I was packing a small bag. He looked at it. What's going on? I'm going to stay with Lily for a while, I said. His face changed. Why? Because I need space, I said. I need to think about what I want, about who I am. He shook his head. You're overreacting. I felt my throat tighten. No, I'm surviving. For a moment, he looked like he wanted to argue, but then he just turned away. I zipped my bag, I put on my coat. When I reached the door, I looked back at him. He was sitting on the couch, looking at the TV. He didn't stop me. He didn't ask me to stay. That hurt the most. Outside, the air was cold. The rain touched my face. I walked slowly, but each step felt like a small piece of freedom. When I reached Lily's place, she opened the door and hugged me tight. You're safe here, she whispered. That night, I slept in her guest room. It was quiet. But it was a different kind of quiet. Not the heavy, lonely quiet of my marriage, but a calm quiet. In the morning, I woke up with sunlight on my face. I made tea. I sat by the window. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel trapped. I didn't know what the future would bring. I didn't know if my marriage could be saved, but I knew one thing. I had chosen myself, and that was the first step toward healing. The story ends with Hannah stepping into an uncertain future. But this time, she's not lost. She's beginning to find herself again. I found the courage to choose myself, and maybe my story will give you courage too. Like this video, subscribe, and let's share more hearts together.